My name is Sister Jean Liston. I'm a Grey Nun of the Sacred Heart, and I've been a Grey Nun for 65 years. Today, I want to speak to you about an experience in my life that was an occasion to help someone, an occasion for me to grow in spirituality. I was principal of Christ the King School in the 1980s. On one morning in September, an elderly gentleman came in with a young boy. He wanted to register his grandson, Michael, for school. We filled out the papers, but Michael had not been baptized. So I volunteered to help Michael. We met every week, and I talked about how good God is and how much God loves us. Michael entered Christ the King School and went through the 8 grades. At times he had difficulty. I would often seek him out just to see what I could do to help him. I think I was Michael's guardian angel. Anyway, he graduated and went to high school. When he was a senior in high school, Michael decided he wanted to join a gang. So he met with this gang leader. The initiation was to shoot someone. So the gang leader shot someone and handed the gun to Michael, who shot, but he says he shot into the air. You can imagine what followed. The police came, they captured him, he was in jail, and there was a trial after several weeks. When he was in jail, I could visit him because I was considered to be his spiritual advisor. So the trial went on, and Michael received life in prison with the possibility of parole in 20 years. The other young man, an African American, received life in prison with no parole. And so the public defenders were joyous with Michael's verdict because they said at least he could have parole after 20 years. Now the 20 years have passed, and it's maybe 24 years, and Michael does not have parole. While he was in prison, Michael got his associate's degree. He seemed to be a model prisoner. He seemed to do whatever they wanted him to do, yet he didn't qualify for parole. This lesson taught me many things about myself. It taught me to be sensitive to those who are poor, those who do not have what they need, those who are in prison, the uncared for, the uneducated. I decided that I needed to do more as principal of Christ the King School. So I started to educate people about the need to abolish the death penalty. And so I mobilized a group together. We were called the Bucks County Community Against the Death Penalty. The first 3 members were an elderly lady who was a Quaker, an elderly gentleman who was pastor of a Protestant church, and me. However, we were filled with vim and vigor and eager to get going. More people joined our group, and we did many things to educate others. We stood on corners, we held up signs, we went to prisons, we picketed against prisons, we went to courtrooms. At one time, we invited 4 men who had just been released from prison because of DNA results. This was in 1993, the first DNA results that left people released from prison. The average person, now that was 4 years, 4 people in 1993. But here it is all those years later, and 351 have been released from prison because of DNA. 21 of these were on death row. The average stay with this is 14 years. So 351 people spent 14 years about or near that in prison. DNA has turned out to be a valuable asset to all those who fight against the death penalty. One of the things I decided to do was to invite Sister Helen Prejean to come and speak to the parish. There's a funny side to this. Sister Helen was coming from New Orleans, and the day she was coming, every hour the plane would be delayed because of fog. So every hour she would call me and tell me she was still in New Orleans. I began to panic because what was I going to do with a church full of people and no speaker? Anyway, Sister Helen arrived at maybe 6 o'clock, and the presentation in the church started at 7. Now, Helen is an excellent speaker if you've ever heard her. And she empowered the people to join our group and to keep on doing what we could to educate others on the evils of a death penalty and the evils of being in prison when you are not guilty. To date, people have been released. One of the things our little group did was we went to the courthouse, and actually we stood on corners, we went to prisons. And if you can see this is the shirt I wore. Stop executions. I guess it's not showing very well, but anyway, we wore that everywhere around Newtown. And we wore it to the prisons, to the courthouse. Many people joined with us. We wrote articles for the newspaper. And so the word had spread that we must work together to abolish the death penalty. What this taught me was powerful. It taught me that the poor have no way to be represented. It taught me that they are uneducated, that they have no lawyers, that most of them are African American and come from homes where they have not been educated. I became conscious of this and eager to try and help these people. Another thing this did for me was it caused me to deepen my spiritual life and to be more sensitive to those people who are poor. My spiritual life was enriched by this experience, and I know that my efforts have led others to be enriched. A favorite quote of mine is from Jeremiah 29. I know well the plans I have for you, plans full of hope and prosperity. This quote is perfect for those who are in jail. It gives them hope that they will soon be released or put on parole and maybe have a life ahead of them. These conclude my remarks for today, and I appreciate your listening, and I hope you too learned a lesson or two. Thank you.